Alrighty, guys. So hello and welcome to South Hills Community Wellness. My name is Jacqueline Battaglia.
And I'm Laura Velasic.
Our goal and mission is to provide a place that people can go to gain access to knowledge from people in their own community to create balance in their lives. A place that people can turn to learn, connect, and collaborate on a variety of personal development, health, and wellness topics. For those of you who are new to the group, welcome. We do have a disclaimer. We have a mutual agreement with our speakers and our members that these workshops are strictly to share knowledge, value, and to connect with like-minded people. South Hills Community Wellness does not agree or disagree with the content presented, nor are we trying to promote a service or a product. These Zoom conferences will be recorded. Therefore, if you would like to remain anonymous, you have the option to disconnect your camera and audio on the control panel by your name. These presentations are also meant to be interactive, so please share, comment, ask questions. We also want to mention that there's a chat feature that you can use if you'd like to ask questions to the whole group. You can even, I'm going to mute everyone to begin, and then you have the capability to unmute yourself if you have a question or a comment. Please feel free to do that. So thank you all for being with us tonight. We know how valuable your time is. Tonight, we are welcoming Holly McIlwain. I just said that wrong. McIlwain, right?
I mean, it's close. It's closer than I got it. So.
I knew I was going to mess it up, but Holly is the author of For She Who Leads, Practical Wisdom for a Woman Who Serves, a talent development partner for Winner Partners, and a talent management for Robert Morris University. And she's the mother of 2 little boys and a former South Hills resident. Tonight, Holly is sharing her knowledge and expertise on women and leadership. If you would like to learn more, you can follow the hashtag Brave Woman Project, and her book is on Amazon. So welcome, Holly.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm going to be whispering because I have 2 little boys sleeping above me, but I couldn't resist the opportunity to get out and see people, real people who I'm not teaching letters and bathroom trips to during the day, because we're all in this really crazy experiment of social design called coronavirus, work from home, do everything differently. So I'm happy to be with you. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I hope that our conversation tonight will leave you with a sense of peace. The book for me and for my coaching clients and for pretty much everyone who has read it has kind of circulated on this thought, when you realize that you're enough, then you kind of can exhale. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. And I've had men and women read it. I've had football players read it. I've had military professionals read it. I've had my husband read it. I've had so many people read it, male and female, that are connecting with this idea that when you want to do something well and you want to show your best face to the world, it can be exhausting if you haven't established boundaries, if you've not really thought about what your values are, and if you've not given yourself permission to be authentic. And so that's kind of where I'd love to see our conversation go. And I'll share some of my research with you to arm you with some reality. And then feel free to ask some questions, and let's see if we can work together and come out of this conversation tonight with a greater sense of peace and the knowledge that you are enough as you are. You don't need to change. You only need to let the best part show. How's that sound?
Awesome.
All right. So our host, is it okay for me to jump in?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. All right. So first, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about myself and how the book came to be. I spent the first 20 years of my life battling this idea of if I'm going to be loved, if I'm going to be good, then I have to be a high performer. I have to be good at things. I have to be likable. I have to be malleable and adaptable. And the level that someone invested in me is really only related and correlates to the level of perfection that I present. Is anyone familiar with that notion? Anyone ever go through? Thank you. It's a burden. It is such a burden to bear. So I grew up in a really small town, very humble beginnings. Left that small town, went to college, paid for my own college through working 2 or 3 jobs at a time, taking out student loans, and just figuring out how to do things. And along that time, I felt really compelled to do things on my own, to prove that I was good enough, to prove that I was strong enough, to prove that I was capable of doing things on my own. Now, this idea of doing things on my own, it just kind of is a crazy notion when there's so many people in this world who want to help you. And right now, with what we're experiencing in our world, all you have to do is look around and there's people offering to help everywhere. But there's not a lot of people asking for help when you offer it. I don't know about you, but I've had this experience where I've directly engaged people who I was worried about, saying, how can I help you? And a lot of the responses is, I'm okay. And that was me. That was 1000% me for the majority of those formational years of my life. But I came out of my 20s with a big desire to change the world, a huge debt of student loans, and a hunger to make a difference. And so I got involved in nonprofit. I was really passionate about it, but it didn't pay the bills. But I was a hustler, and so I worked in various sales jobs and service industry jobs in order to subsidize the cost of my passion. What that did for me was it gave me a real sense of reality. It got me out of the bubble of the area of my passion, because I really wanted to change the world. I loved the organization I was with. I loved the people I was serving. But because I was forcing myself to be responsible for my debt to Sally Mae, and my debt to my landlord and my car payments, I was doing this really humble work in different places and engaging with people of all different socioeconomic statuses and being accountable to people who maybe weren't as educated as I was. And so the lesson I learned in that was humility and give everything. Now, for someone who's an achiever, that's what I'm an absolute achiever. I think I have to do something in order for someone to love me or like me. Thank you for pointing that out too. Being humbled in this way was really good medicine for me. But it also was dangerous because it was like feeding a beast of this, people will like you if you do all the work. And so as in my organization, as I took great opportunities that were presented to me and worked really hard and received even greater responsibilities, I wanted to assume all the work for myself. I didn't trust other people to perform functions at the level that I thought they should be performed. And I remember I was so tied up with passion, that I was so passionate about it, that I thought I had to do it all myself. I ended up starting my own business on the side because I wanted to, I wanted to be something. I wanted to have something. I wanted to have something to share. So I started my own business and things were going great in my life. Everything was going great. And then I got cancer. And I was in my 20s when I got cancer. I was in the later end of my 20s, and it really knocked me out. It caused me to let go of my business. It caused me to become humbled again. And I went and stayed with my parents for several weeks and had them help me and take care of me, this super independent kid that left home at 17. And all of the work that I was doing in my nonprofit, I had to trust other people to continue. And so all the things that were wrapped up around me and what I could do and how great I was gone. So, after I recovered and came back, you would think that I would be smart enough to know that it's not about me, that people can help, and that sometimes at the end of the day, enough is enough. But I wasn't that smart. It took me a little bit longer. So I moved into a senior leadership position in my organization, and I would go to work first thing in the morning, before 6 in the morning, I'd be at work. I would stay 10, 12 hours. I'd be coming home thinking about, did I do enough? When are they going to figure out I shouldn't be here? When are they going to figure out that I am a has-been? When are they going to figure out that I'm not smart enough, that I'm not capable? When are they going to figure me out and kick me out? That's what I walked away with. Now, I didn't know that that's a common 70% of Americans who are walking around this earth, this country, walk around with the same thought in their head. 70%. A great majority is women, but there's a lot of men from my unofficial research on that. It's called the imposter syndrome. There's a real name for it. And I'm going to talk about that. What happened after that is I ended up completing a master's degree in organizational leadership at Robert Morris, getting to know some phenomenal people, digging a little bit deeper into organizational leadership and how people follow. Guess what? Here's the secret. When you love them, they follow you anywhere. It's not about how great you are or what you do for them. It's about loving them and being humble enough to let them lead sometimes. And so I ended up leaving my organization and started to work in a couple of different consulting roles. And I carried around the manuscript for my book in my phone for a solid 2 years. Got fired kind of out of the blue, which sent me in a tailspin and caused me to finish the book. When I finished the book, I realized that my research was leading me down a pathway to acknowledge a couple things. So I'm going to share with you what I discovered about when women lead. But our story starts a long time ago. In 1787, a law was passed that allowed married women in some limited circumstances to act as, it's a really fun word, sole femme traders. It meant that women in very limited circumstances were, for the first time in American history, permitted by law to conduct business for themselves in limited circumstances. So fast forward that to 1920. The 19th Amendment was added to the US Constitution, giving women the right to vote. And in that, 100 and some years, almost 150 years, not a lot was really changing. Women were still being regarded as property. Women were still being regarded as second-rate citizens. But what were they doing? They were carrying the home front. Kind of a lot of the women I talk to today are relating to that, because we're working from home, we're working at home, and we're raising our children, caring for our children, teaching our children at home while we're working in the jobs that we're working. And that was happening. It's been happening through history. We're all doing it. Men have a different kind of skill set, a different strength, and a different gift that they bring to the world. But women in our design are doing something unique. We're not only growing humans and bringing them into the world and raising them, but we're also innately designed to be seeing the whole picture. And I'm going to talk about my research with Stanford about the brain, but we're seeing the whole picture and we're making decisions and we're managing the lifestyle. And so as we think about, 1920 was the first time women were allowed to vote, and that was added to the Constitution. They were doing important things long before that. And so fast forward that 50 years. Two people that I talk about a lot in my book, but I think are really important to know, are Rose Clance and Suzanne Inez. They had been doing a research study on people, on professionals, and specifically in high achieving women. So this was 1978 was when they published their study. We were seeing an influx of women in leadership roles in the workforce. We were seeing a shift from the traditional stay-at-home mom model to a working professional. And we know that that's evolved quite a lot over the last 40 years, 50 years. It's changed quite a lot. The way that women do business is different today than it was in 1978. But they were the first to give a name to something called the imposter phenomenon. And so they published a study that really brought to light the reality that women are asking, high achieving, high potential, talented, gifted women are asking this question: what are they going to find out about me? When are they going to figure me out? When am I going to be untold? And they would do these great things. And we can pick up on it today, because it's when you compliment a woman on, or a man on a particularly good job they do, they'll say, well, I had a great team. Or if you give someone, praise publicly, they're going to say, gosh, I was lucky. That's a little snippet of where that is, it's a false humility. And it's really great to be humble. Remember, I talked about that. But there's also this piece that women, myself included, and some of the men that I've researched, we don't feel like we have earned the right to say that I am enough. And just a couple more numbers, and then I want to get some feedback from you before we dig into some more of the research. The growth of women-owned businesses in the United States is substantial right now. So when Rose and Suzanne published this research, there was about 500,000 women-owned businesses in the U.S. The last research I got was from 2018. So that's kind of when I needed to tap my research out. And I have, it grew to 12.3 million. So from 400,000 in 1972 to 12.3 million in 2018. So it's proof that, we can do really hard things. And women who are owning the 12.3 million businesses that are owned by women, that's evidence that women are harnessing the entrepreneurial spirit. They are silencing the question, am I enough, and the imposter syndrome. And that's exciting. But as exciting as that is, 88% of those women-owned businesses are bringing in a revenue of $100,000. So they're not making the money that pays the bills or pays the loans or gives them a lifestyle that maybe they would be more comfortable with. They're making these choices because they don't want to be asking the question every day, am I enough? They've had bad experiences with corporate America, or they've had a passion that they saw they were uniquely able to fill a need in the world or follow a passion. And so they're willing to make that $100,000 a year in running a business rather than have all the security that comes with others. And a lot of my friends and people I trust are women-owned businesses, small businesses, independent proprietors, and they're hurting right now because their livelihood, the thing they built, is being dramatically impacted by the way that we're responding to COVID-19 and just the place that the world is in. So I delivered you guys a whole bunch right now in the past 15 minutes. Can I just pause and check in with you and see, what's resonating or what have you seen?
I think that when you said maybe not accepting compliments, I know someone will be like, oh, I love your shirt. And I'm like, it literally cost me 50 cents. I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
it's just funny how that just so automatically comes out. It's sometimes it's like weird if you're just like, oh, thanks, and it just ends there, I guess. I don't know, but I did relate with that a lot.
Yeah. And it's so easy when it comes to something physical that's not really us. It's like, it's our shirts, it's our purses. It's so easy to give those compliments. But what about Jacqueline, you have such a great ability to network and bring people together. I really appreciate that about you. When you hear that compliment, it's like, that's a real one. That's deep. What do I say? Thank you. It's a weird place to be sometimes that we have to start being comfortable there. Any other feedback?
Well, thoughts on it? I'm sorry if I'm interrupting, if I am.
No, you're perfect.
So you displayed a lot of educational information to me, and I just want to talk about what the people that are on the within the midst of all this, within the field, that are going through it. And one of my good friends, Ryan, is going through it, and I just what's it like to be in the midst of it, and within your own mind, and how you feel through in terms of I look like freaking alfalfa. I'm going bald, but so what's it like for you to be in the midst of it through the spike that we're going through right now,
So it's really interesting. I think I'm unique. I'm unique in my history of having dual careers, dual work constantly. I've never known a time in my life where I've only had one source of income, because it's just not in my DNA. And some people can't be at that ridiculous level. But I can share with you that there's something about high achiever, high potential individual. And it's related, I believe, it's related to an achievement orientation. And that achievement orientation it's a hunger factor where they're always looking to learn. They're always looking to be early adopters of technology, of processes, of education, of theory. And they're going to be the risk. Yep. They're going to be risk takers.
Yeah, it is a risk.
Yeah. So
In terms of everything, like it's a small risk, but it is a risk in terms of being educated and everything throughout like this whole pandemic. Like education for each individual person is so minutely important for all of us to really understand. And I feel bad when I talk to people. They say, oh, they just say so many things that are so outlandish that I get really frustrated, because I've done my research and like I know to stay home, and like there's people
yeah.
that try to talk to me and like, hey, come over here. I say no.
So I think I'm going to take an advantage of that and shift that a little bit to, and we'll bring this back to talk a little bit more about that leadership potential. But education only gets a person so far. People care far more about what you do than what you know. And when I coach individuals, I do a lot of career coaching and I do professional development coaching. I coach individuals and I say, whatever you have on paper is only worth what it's printed on, because the things that we do that bring value to organizations, the way that we show up, the way that we fulfill our commitments, the way that we treat other people, the way that we follow up, those things matter. And you can't do any of that really authentically if you don't know what you're about. And I want to tie that back into this idea that the imposter syndrome is really about a fear of being found out, a fear of being found out that we're not as authentic as we thought we were or we want to be, or the way we want to present ourselves, that we're not as good, we're not as smart, we're not as brave, we're not as talented. And so I propose that we step into a place of understanding who we are. So in my book, I do this with all my clients, I take them through a process of understanding, where'd you come from? What's your story? What are those important moments that shape you? Where's your home? And how did your home shape you for where you're sitting right now? Be where your feet are and really understand that. And then moving from that, I encourage my clients to think about what's most important to you. What are those values that you make your decisions and shape your life around? How do you define them? And how do you identify behaviors that support those values? And from that point, moving it forward even further, what are those boundaries that you will not violate in the way that you choose your work, the way that you choose your leisure, the way that you choose your engagements? And from an understanding of those things, you should be able to put forth action that allow you to freely engage with other people and show your best parts. And the reality is this: when we know what we're about, we have the power to and the ability to adapt and to do brave things. And the brave thing is seldom the easy thing or the cost-effective thing or the comfortable thing. And that's what's really driving a lot of my friends that are small business owners or independent contractors forward. They know what they're about. They've done their research internally. They know what they bring to the world. They know what they bring to the marketplace. And they know that if they work harder than everyone else, they're going to be at the top. They're going to float to the surface. They're not going to sink. They're not going to drown. they're going to keep doing the right thing, and doing the right thing matters. And if we're really honest, then we can realize that everything matters. And that's one of the things that I think women uniquely bring to a leadership role and to the world that we're in. And let me explain what I mean by that. In 2017, Stanford University did some research. They were researching the way that men and women make decisions. And I love this because the way that we make decisions is so complementary that we really can't do things without the other gender. There's no way that we could be as good if we do things alone. We're always better when we do it together. And so the way that men scientifically make decisions is they're able to look at the problem in front of them and see the details on the page and make a decision based on what they see in front of them, very pragmatically, very objectively, based on what's on the page. And I can say that almost every man that I make decisions with, 9 out of 10 of them are gifted in making a decision like that. Women's brains, on the other hand, and this is a Stanford study in 2017 that brought this about. Women's brains have this ability to have the synapses fire quickly from left to right hemisphere. We make decisions based on our observations, our historical experiences, the cause and effect relationships that we experienced or observed. We're able to pull facts, memories, emotions, and what we see at a very quick rate, very all-encompassing. So we're making decisions not just based on the page that we're looking at, but on the whole big picture, on the whole book. And so when women lead, we sometimes, when we're in a position to speak up, we sometimes will give our opinion and our feedback, saying something like, well, I feel like this is a better path to be on. And sometimes our counterparts, the people who we're making decisions with, feel and dismiss that. But it's a really real thing, is that we are feeling a decision because we're pulling all this data from all these different places. And when men make a decision, they say, I know, because they look at the page in front of them, the problem in front of them, and their brain gives them a very clear pathway. So when men and women make decisions together, then we have to be able to speak in a language that we understand. And so the Stanford researchers said, if we really understood what was happening inside the women's brain, we would be paying much greater attention to the way that they make decisions and want to dig deeper into that and lean into that a little bit more. I thought that was really interesting. I've tried using this line on my husband a dozen times. It doesn't work. As soon as I say feel, he's shutting me down. But it is really interesting that the Stanford research came out in 2017. I haven't seen it a whole lot of places shared, but it's there. So can I just get some feedback from you guys on that? Does this resonate with the way that that you have seen leadership? Oh, yes, I saw a hand.
I love that. I love that. Just because, like, men are made to solve problems.
Yes.
So anytime that you ask them a question or just vent to them or anything, they're trying to solve it and just fix the whole thing. Where sometimes you just need to vent, and women, I guess men do vent a little. My husband has so many single buddies, but women are just, we want to throw it off you, or I just want to say like, oh, my day to day. And, but he wants to fix everything and you don't need to do that anymore or whatever, so.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to look up the research for you. I'll put the page number in the notes and the study, so you can share that, Laura, with him and say, look, see, I'm right. So I'll put that in. It's note 13 in my book too. So Jacqueline, if you're looking for that too, it's note 13. It's really good research, though. The whole article was just so fascinating. Anyone else have any experience with that?
I never thought of the feel, that's saying I feel, because I'm trying to make more I statements now, instead of just like, you don't do this right, or, whatever it is. But when you say I feel, I can see them, thinking
it's an F word.
Out of that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And and again, I tell my clients, I don't want you to change who you are. I want you to be able to communicate in a way that people see you and are not distracted by their own limitations. And so I do a lot of work with DISC behaviors and with Clifton Strengths. And I always love using these tools when I coach people, because we sometimes need that outside verifiable data to present to us our own blind spots. And that's where, being a woman who leads, it's tapping into this place where we're aware, we're empathetic, we're in the whole picture, but we also have to harness this courageousness. And so, when I started really thinking about this book, I started the Brave Women Project. And some of the women that I was talking with at the time, and they've become really dear friends, most of them are in the book. I did their vignettes. We created this space called the Brave Women Project, where it's just social media movement where we talk about those moments where we are being brave, and we celebrate that together. And I think that the words that continuously were coming up for me was grit and grace. Grit doing the really hard things, grace doing it with a flow and a genuine beauty that allows people to see who you really are and what you're really made of. And as I look at my own stories through the past 38 years, I always want to be loved, I always want to be liked, I always want to be needed. But I was willing to show up. I was willing to work harder than everyone else. And I was willing to bring the whole part of me to whatever situation I was in, take it or leave it, love it or hate it. I was bringing myself. And so I didn't know that I was enough just as that. And every time I sat down with someone, that was the resonance, knowing that you're enough and knowing that you can show up and be enough as you show up. So I wonder, if you all would think about this, and maybe, do some journaling later or do some thoughts later. But think about a time in your life when you had access to this part of yourself, when you had to access your grit and your grace in order to make the impossible possible. And then, listen, you have grit and grace too. Your grace looks a little different because you don't wear high heels, but there is something there that is uniquely required, harnessing empathy, harnessing compassion, and harnessing a vulnerability that comes with being authentic. That's where grit and grace comes from. Grit gets it done, and grace makes people want to follow you. And so I want you to think about that. And then, what I have done a lot of times with people I've coached using the book as well, is I've asked them to stick with that a moment and then think about one thing that they would like to do. So I'd ask you to think about this. What's one thing that you would like to do or see through or accomplish in the next year that will require more of you? And that more is a 4-letter word that can be really scary if you don't harness it and appropriately manage your time there too. Because if you focus so much on more, but you're asking, is that enough? Is that enough? Is that enough? You've got to have your values in place. You've got to have your boundaries in place so that you can freely give more and not have it take away any part of you that is meant to be rested and rejuvenated. Does that resonate with any of you? Good. Maybe, in the chat, if anyone wants to, just kind of put that thing, if it's already hitting you, what's the one thing you want to do, you want to see through to do that more? Feel free to put that in the chat and just share that with us. We're not going to talk about it outside of here, and it won't be available on Facebook Live, so sorry. But, why not just take a moment to put that out there in the universe now and have that be something that spurs you on. Many of us, our lives are dramatically changed right now. And if you're a caregiver like me, I don't have a lot of time anymore to think about things. But I do have these moments where I get to take stock of my life and the decisions I make and the decisions I've made and the way that I want to move forward. And so even for people who are super, super busy like me right now in this crazy time, I still have a little bit of headspace that I can reevaluate. But if you are in a place where your life is slowed down a lot, or you're pivoting or contemplating a pivot, this is an awesome time for you to really consider your values, your boundaries, what you'd like to see in your life in the next year, one thing you'd like to do more of or require more of. And write down those steps and make a plan, because you really deserve it for yourself. You deserve to know that you're enough. You deserve to be able to live up to your potential. You deserve to be able to define the narrative that surrounds your life. You're not circumstances. You deserve to be able to tell your own story and find value in the story, where you access your grit and your grace to make the next good decision. Any thoughts on that? Oh, look. Thanks for being the first one. The first one's always the hardest one.
Awesome.
Do you guys have any questions or things that you were hoping I was gonna mention that I didn't?
I loved the decision making. That's something that I definitely still have trouble with. I'm always so fearful that I'm going to offend somebody, or that, so that's why I think I have a hard time with decision making. I am a people pleaser. I know that. I understand I can't always make everyone happy or have everyone agree. And I don't want everyone to agree. I guess I am so fearful of I've always said I'm sorry, are you mad at me? I don't know. Those are things that I've worked on. I've gotten a whole lot better. But yeah, I think that interferes with my ability to make decisions. Just wondering what would they think if I did, really taking into account everything.
It's so funny. My best friend in the whole world has a disposition really similar to yours in the way that she responds. And I feel very protective over her, because it comes from a place of such a good, beautiful heart that genuinely cares about people, but also, there's certain things in our lives that shape us. And sometimes it's some of the wounds that shape us, and sometimes it's some of the fears that shape us, and sometimes it's some of the triumphs that shape us. And I think being able to name that thing that is shaping you is powerful. And I happen to have on my desk right now, this is a super old book that has been around forever, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. Oh my God, is it world shaking, right? If you're going to buy a book, get this one.
I'm excited.
I mean, I love this one too, but this one is, this book is really intense because it really gives you an opportunity to understand where that place is that some of your decisions come from. And sometimes it's a wound, sometimes it's a victory, sometimes it's a mix of both. And it takes courage to get into there too.
And I've never heard that before, the place where your decision comes from. I guess I just never even thought of it like that. And I think you're right. I know you're right that when we can name something, I think that we can move past it. And so just making that little connection that means so much.
It's beautiful. I love hearing that. You have to let me know. If it works.
We email a lot of authors too, and they've been really receptive with sending us books so I'm going to try and get a couple of these, because I think that a lot of people would benefit from that. So I'm excited. Awesome. Thank you for that recommendation.
Oh, it's awesome. And you can get them online on Amazon for $3 or $5 a copy, because there's so many. It's been around forever. So it's an awesome book.
Yay, thank you.
$10.89.
Yeah.
I'm looking right now.
There you go. And if you want a copy of my book, I will get it to you before Amazon will. So I'll put a link in the I'll put a link in the chat. But there's a really neat, I don't know, for me at least, I have a number of books that I will go through over and over again, and I'll have to kind of like replay, and I want to have some of those words as the soundtrack in my head instead of the head trash that we pick up from everywhere else in the world, and even from ourselves. So I find a lot of value in having like my go-to books that and one of my mentors does the same thing. She has a stack of like 20 books that she goes through in a year that she'll go back to, and maybe not read the whole thing, but go back to different sections so that we really become that we really want to be. And one of the ways we do that is by putting the good stuff in our head. So there's a little thought on that. Anyone else? What else are you guys, what are you going to take away today? And do you have any questions? Because I know I threw a whole lot at you. Someone is texting right now. They're looking it up. I can tell. I can feel it. One of the things that I will also share that I do share a little bit in the book, but I think it's just an interesting piece of practical is just like a transition that happened to me as I was finishing the book. And so I'll circle back and tell you guys a quick story. Do I have time for a quick story?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, I after cancer, I came back with a vengeance. I came back into my work. I had, as I shared, I let go of my business, which was really just, it was tough. I let go of a boyfriend, which was tough. And I didn't know what to do with myself because everything was different. The kind of cancer that I had really changed me in a lot of ways. And so, I just started, going to the gym and putting myself on a treadmill and learning how to use this body in a new way. And I cried out lots of tears on the treadmill from pain and from a broken heart and from disappointment in my business and feeling like a failure. And I just put a lot of miles on my tennis shoes and on that treadmill. And so then I was like, well, maybe I should do something with this. So I committed to do 12 races in 12 months, which was a crazy idea. And I also, in that time, I joined a couple of other people in running and really committing to learn how to be a runner. I never ran. I was never a runner. I had that idea once before I got cancer, and then I got cancer and I was rescued from it. So I started running, and I did 12 races in 12 months and ran a couple of half marathons. And so I never got past the half marathon because I'm not a runner, not built for it, not made for it, but God does it fun. And so I reflected as I was finishing this book on what it was to run in some of those training miles and what it was to run in the Pittsburgh Marathon. The first year that I ran the Pittsburgh Marathon, I did a half, and I did it with a couple of people that we stayed together. We ran together. No one could run for me. I did it myself, but I was with people who were just going to stick with me. And it's good. There's times in our lives that we really need that. We really need people to just stick with us no matter what, the ride or dies that they say, and it's so popular right now. But really we need, like I call it like sweat or die. Like we ran together regardless. We waited for each other, and it was just, we just did it. The second year, I was a little bit stronger. I was a little bit different. I had one person to run with, and we ran and we encouraged each other and we cheered at the finish line and we pushed each other. And there's times in our lives that we need people to push us. We need people who are a little bit stronger, who are a little bit faster, who are a little bit smarter to just push us. And I needed that year. But the third year, I was out-trained. I out-trained everyone else. I had different priorities, and I was just feeling stronger, and I was a little bit better. And I ran that half marathon by myself, 13 miles by myself. And I remember thinking to myself, the soundtrack on my phone, it was perfect. It was like written for every mile. And I was enjoying the sunshine. It was beautiful. But there were a couple of miles that were really lonely, where I was not by anyone. There was no one cheering. It was just like these lonely miles. And so I loved running, and it was a great place for me. After I got married and had a couple of kids, you don't really have time for running so much in the early years, but also your body changes and times changes, and it was not making sense. And so I realized that it was something I was missing. And so I made a plan. I knew that my body was not going to be running 13 miles anytime soon. But there was some work I could do to get myself ready to run. And so I made a plan for about 7 months. I was just doing these particular exercises so that I would be able to get out and do a run. And I was like, let's just see if I can do it. First time I tried with a stroller, I made it about 7 houses in my neighborhood. It was pathetic. So then I signed up for the day after Christmas. I signed up for a fun run. And the only person who showed up was a pace runner for the Pittsburgh Marathon. Like, she does this for fun. She runs marathons for fun. And I was like, I am so sorry. I'm going to disappoint you because I haven't run in like 6 years. And she let me set the pace for the day, and we ran over 3 miles, and I didn't die at all. I felt good. I could walk the next day. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know I had that kind of grit, And so then I made a plan to run. And, what happened in the middle of all this was finishing the book and reconnecting with this lonely mile. And so the last chapter of the book talks about the things that only we can do. We can read all the leadership books in the world, but we can't lead if we don't actually do it. We can read all the self-help books, but we're not helped or healed if we don't do the work to actually get there. We can say all the nice things in the world, but if our actions don't back it up, no one's going to trust us. So when I was writing this Lonely Mile chapter, I remember sitting at this very desk on this very computer, just bawling, because I missed the runner in me. I missed that woman who was strong and who was brave and who was courageous and who was fun, who was fast. I missed her. And so I took advantage of, that run. And it was December 26th. And 3 days later, I got the Runner app on my phone. And I made a commitment to myself to go to the gym every day at lunchtime at work and work myself up to doing a 5K. So by the end of February, I was easily doing like 3.5 miles on my lunch break. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is my body. I can't believe this is the same person that delivered 2 babies and who had cancer. Like, I can't believe I did this. And I was signed up, and I got my best friend in the world to do a St. Patrick's Day run that got canceled, COVID. But I met that goal, and I'm not going to stop, because that was part of me that I was really proud of. But here's what I had to do. I had to do it for myself. I had to do the running. No one else could run for me. I had to talk myself into it every time. When I wanted to give up, I had to remind myself that I was brave. I had to remind myself that I was strong. I had to remind myself that I do hard things. And I think that those are 3 things that everyone here on this call can take with them. There are things that you only can do for yourself. And so you got to go back to your history. Find that time you were brave. Remind yourself, I'm brave. Go back to your history. Find the time that you were strong. Remind yourself that I'm strong. Go back to your history. Find the time that you did a hard thing and remind yourself at those scary moments, I do hard things. And at the end of the day, know that you are enough, that you've done enough, you've given enough. And just as you are enough. And when you start being gentle with yourself and telling yourself, if you truly have given all that you can give, if you start telling yourself and treating yourself with the dignity and respect that you deserve for giving enough and being enough and doing enough, you're going to be maybe a little bit more empathetic to other people, maybe a little bit more willing to give that deep, in-depth compliment that comes from a place of I see you. Maybe you're going to be able to do that next hard, scary thing. And even if you fail, you're going to forgive yourself. But the things that matter, there's no education attached to them. There's no degree attached to it. There's no title attached to it. It's the disposition you take. It's the way that you present yourself. It's what you give. And it's what you know. And when you know, you just got to know it. So I hope that gives you a little a little evening motivation.
You did for me. Thank you.
Yay! Good. That's all I need was one.
Very good. Very good. I really enjoyed
Awesome.
this. I feel like just with all this, we've been, having all these meetings and just learning and stuff more every single day, and it's just so nice to come back to me again and, getting people together in another way too, that it's been just been really fun. So thank you so much. And anybody have any questions or anything before we wrap it up?
Lots of good comments over here.
Yeah, I'm loving the comments. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's awesome.
Very awesome. Yes.
That's awesome. I guess if you're on Facebook Live, you can drop a comment and we'll all come back and see you when we get off this.
And I'll also post this to YouTube, and I'll put like all your information and a link to the book and all of that too. So
awesome. Thank you.
Another place to find this.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, I miss the South Hills. We lived in the South Hills when we first got married, and for the first year and a half of our marriage. So I have lots of fond memories of the South Hills. So I'm glad that there's good things happening there.
Yeah, and you're welcome to join us on any calls that you're interested in. So
thank you so much. Awesome.
Thank you. Let you know tomorrow at 1 we are having Laura Bell is going to do a 5-minute Facebook for a Zoom call makeover, and then nothing till Saturday. We have a yoga class on Saturday at 10 with Lauren Panza, and 5 o'clock with Ian Reith on Saturday. And then Monday, do we have Jackie?
We have Marianne about going into the specific oils, the essential oils. And then Tuesday is Michelle Harris with Beachbody. She's going to talk about, portions and meal planning and things like that. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Holly.
Sure.
We really appreciate you and your time, and look forward to reading your book.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm almost done with it. So if anyone wants to borrow it, we'll drop it off too.
I'll meet you at Kogo's.
Awesome.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, everybody, for getting on.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thank you so much.
That was fun. I'm going to go to bed.
I know. Me too. It's like past my bedtime.
Me too. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the invitation, and I'll see you around.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sorry for butchering your name. I was nervous.
It's all right. Everyone does. It's all good. All right. See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hold on, I'm going to end this live stream. Okay. There we are.